you've got a mini table right here. It kind of tells a lot of the story. So what we can do is we can highlight that right there. And that's kind of like that, the mini table. And this is what you're going to want to put in a document. And so how do we get that into Word? Now I have a blank Word document right here, and I'm just going to put some markers here. These markers are where I would put headings and things like that. The heading might read, this is a deductible ratio. And then you're going to want an intro. And let me zoom in so we can see. And again, I'm only expecting about a page, maybe a page and a half for each ratio. And it's more or less, that's all your boss would expect, because they don't want a novel. They just want something that tells them in words and in numbers. So most of what you're doing here in this document is just showing them the numbers you did and explaining it in words also. So you would give like an introductory paragraph, and that would say basically, the ratio moved, went from X to Y, increase, decrease, whatever, increase, decrease, something, something. You can say some percentages, and you can say, in this case, appears to be, related, I am a horrible speller, related to changes in charges. Charges. There. So that's just your intro. That's like one paragraph. You told the whole story right there. That might be all they read. But the other things you'll want to put in here is you would want to put in, well, you did all that hard work to make your worksheet look nice. So remember we copied that right here. We highlighted this area. Now, getting this formatting right inside the worksheet is important because of this trick I'm going to show you. So I highlighted the exact area that I want to cut and paste and drop right into my document. And I want it to look exactly like this. The trick is I'm going to hit copy. I right-clicked and I hit copy. I'm going to go into my document now. And I'm going to do a edit, home, paste. I'm going to do paste special, and I'm going to paste it as a picture. Ta-da! And now it looks exactly like it did in the worksheet because in a very real sense, it is now a picture. Now, if you see what I just did there, I scaled it like it was a picture. By the way, don't use these because watch what happens. Oh, it becomes unreadable. So always try and use the corners because it keeps the perspective the same. So you don't wind up with crunched in numbers. But now it's a lot easier to see. And notice how easy it is to read. If I had instead just did a regular insert, ooh, it's kind of hard to read. I'm going to have to make it look like a table. That's messy. Let me undo that. That was confusing. So it's much easier to write it. Now, the one trick is now that it is a picture, I can't go in here and change the numbers because it's just a picture. But again, this is a trick that I use. It's a lot easier to make the format look good once it winds up in a document. Now that this is here, I can do the same with my graph. So let's go back to my worksheet. Where was that graph I had? There's that graph. And again, you'll want to make your graph look a little bit nicer, put a chart title in there, maybe make the lines bigger or something. But just for demonstration purposes, here we go. Same thing. I just clicked in the graph, and then I right-clicked and I say copy. And now I'm going to go over into my document. And I'm going to find a little bit of empty space in my document, maybe right there. And it's the same trick. I'm going to go to the Home tab, paste, paste special, and I'm going to make sure it comes through as a picture. JPEG tends to work best. And there's my chart right there. Again, it's a picture, so I can scale it in and out to make it look good. Now, if you're looking at the page, that page, remember, I said you don't need many words. You're just describing what you already did. So one of the things that you already described in your document was you gave it an intro. The next thing I would talk about is I would say change over time. So you would look at your change over time where you would say in the ratio and the components. So you're describing why the ratio changed. And remember, in this case, we found out that the ratio changed mostly because there was a big increase in the amount that we were billing. So, but that's what you would talk about when you were talking about your change over time. Now, the last thing that you will do is you will say whether or not this is a good, bad, or why, and why, excuse me, and why. So is it a good thing or a bad thing that your deductible ratio is going up? I'd argue it's probably a bad thing because that means you're writing off, for every dollar you bill, you're writing off more. So it's probably a bad thing that it's going up, but you certainly do have the reason why it was, oh, well, why is it bad? The reason I just said, you're writing off more for every dollar and you don't want to do that. Now, for other ratios, there might be more dire consequences. We'll talk about those in one moment, but just to kind of wrap up, so we showed you how to create the mini table and how to create, for example, a graph out of that. And then once it winds up in a document, the document is just going to have, you can see to fill in the words, it might push it a little bit over a page because between the table and the graph, you're taking up the better part of one page. And then when you add some words for the introduction and then talk about how things are changing over time, and then wrap up with whether or not this is good or bad. Uh, Once you add, again, just like a paragraph for each one of those things, and not even long paragraphs, but once you add something for each one of those, you've probably pushed over into the second page. If you're going over 2 pages, you're probably saying more than you need to. So probably unless this table is extremely small, and don't compress it. Your boss doesn't want to have to squint. You're figuring on about 1 page, 1.5 pages for each ratio that you're doing. Now, going back to the worksheet, again, you won't be able to do the deductible ratio, but there'll be other ratios that you can do. I don't know which ones you'll pick or which ones will be assigned, but I can tell you that there are some ratios for which there are critical numbers. One of those, for example, is the current ratio. The current ratio is basically it's a way of looking at how many times over does your the way that how many times over can you pay your regular bills is the easiest way to think of it. It's kind of like your burn ratio. In this case, you have 5 times current means the money you have in the bank and that you expect to collect soon. Everything that you expect to get this year is 5 times more than what you expect to have to pay. If you break it down into a monthly mindset, this is basically it's saying, how many times over does my paycheck cover my stuff? So your paycheck is 5 times more than, let's say, your mortgage and your car payment. When is that important? When it's 5, that's all good. When it gets down to 2, you're getting razor thin. When it's down to 1 or below 1, remember I talked about critical values? When it's down below 1, you are in dangerous shape because it means that you have more bills than your paycheck's going to be. Now, to make sense of other ratios, and something else that might help, especially in the document itself, like the Word document, is notice over here, again, you're given these, there's industry data for key ratios. So that deductible ratio that we were doing, we saw ours change over time, and we just talked a bunch about how that happens. You can see, you can compare yourself to other hospitals here. You can see the median value for that is 0.26. In other words, the median, most hospitals or the midpoint of hospitals is 0.26. In other words, they're writing off 26% of what they bill. So we've historically been under that. Are we among the super performers here who are only writing off 18? No, we're not, but we are certainly below average, which is a good thing or a bad thing, but it's a thing. So in terms of padding out your document just a little bit extra, one of the things that you could add in here in this Y section is talk about comparing your ratio to industry averages. So whatever you're saying at the end, you can say we are better or worse than industry averages. So that would be kind of a finishing touch on the document. Now for submission, if you've got questions about this assignment, you can send in your worksheet with your with your draft mini table, and let's say you can't get the graph to work. Send it with the numbers where at least this much is started, and I can help you along. Or if you're having problems trying to find something or finding related measures, again, send the started worksheet, get this part of it started, and then I can kind of help you through the bottom part. Uh, and then for the document, if you've got questions, the same is true. Get it started, write a draft, start your intro, start the document, start the words. But then if you're having problems getting things inserted or don't know if that's the right tone or if it's formatted, okay, then send that to me as well for review, for draft review if you want. And in terms of submitting, the only thing you need to submit for this assignment is the Word document itself. So you're only submitting, well, basically, as we said, about probably a page and a half for each one of the ratios that you're doing. So this should give you enough to get started. And as I said, if you have questions along the way, please send in draft work for review. Good luck.